Wait until you see the easiest schedule this year. It's maybe the easiest schedule that I have seen since I've been doing these schedule rankings. What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our college football channel. If you missed the top 10 toughest schedules, did that video yesterday, go back and check it out. But now we're looking at the 10 easiest schedules for the 2023 college football season, and we will start at number 10. Wisconsin with a pretty easy schedule. I talked about Purdue and how last year I picked them to win the Big Ten West because of their schedule. I knew the division would be wide open and felt like they had the easiest path, the best schedule that could get them to the Big Ten championship. That team is Wisconsin this year. Take a look at this schedule. It really sets up well for them. Just first of all, the non-conference, they play Buffalo, Georgia Southern, and then I know Washington State beat them last year, and so that is going to be a tough game, but you're not talking about playing a top 10, 15 team or anything like that. Then you, again, look at the Big Ten schedule here. Who do they play out of the Big Ten East? Because you know they're going to play every team out of the Big Ten West. Yes, they'll play Ohio State. They get them at home, but they will play the Buckeyes. But then who else do they play? Rutgers and Indiana. So the two worst teams out of the East. Really, really good draw there. They get Iowa at home. They get Nebraska at home. Road games are Purdue, Illinois, Indiana, and Minnesota. So a very manageable schedule for Wisconsin, and it's why I would say they probably should be the front runners in the Big Ten West this year. If you think that division is going to be wide open like it usually is, then they've got the schedule that can get them to the Big Ten championship. So Wisconsin at number 10. Number 9 is Cincinnati. Cincinnati with a, boy, I tell you what, they really got a good schedule in the Big 12. Yes, they do play Pitt in the non-conference, so that's a tough game on the road. That's the only reason why they're not higher on this list. But you look at who they play in the Big 12. They do play Oklahoma, but they don't play TCU. They don't play Texas. They don't play Kansas State. So arguably the three top teams in the conference, they don't play any of them. And then another team that a lot of people are high on, Texas Tech, they don't play them either. So this is, I mean, a great draw in the Big 12. Really easy schedule for Cincinnati. Now this team, you know, a lot of people expect them to take a big step back this year, but because of this schedule, maybe they can still have a pretty good season, pretty good record at the end of the day. Really, they lucked out with their Big 12 conference schedule. Number 8 is Michigan. Just take a look at the non-conference schedule. East Carolina, UNLV, and Bowling Green. I mean, a really easy non-conference schedule. The reason why Michigan is not higher, I mean, it's simply because they play Penn State and Ohio State. You've got two Tier 1 games there at the end of the season. That's, the only thing keeping them from not being right there near the top in terms of easiest schedules. They'll play Maryland on the road as well. They'll play Nebraska and Minnesota out of the West. Both of those games are on the road. And then Purdue, so they don't play Wisconsin or Iowa. This is just a really easy schedule. But again, with the point system that I use, having Penn State and Ohio State really keeps them from being in that top 5 for sure for easiest schedules. Because outside of those games, this is a really easy schedule. Number 7 is Oklahoma. Also a team with a very easy non-conference schedule. Arkansas State, SMU, and Tulsa. Those are a decent group of 5 teams. It's not like they're going to go out there and win those games by 50 points. But no Power 5 opponent, no real tough game in the non-conference. You look at their conference schedule. They do play Texas. They do play TCU, but they avoid Kansas State. They avoid Texas Tech. Overall, pretty easy schedule here. They also avoid Baylor, who is a team that I think could be pretty good this year. So a kind of middle-of-the-road conference schedule for them and an easy non-conference schedule. That's why Oklahoma is here at number 7. Number 6 is UCLA. They'll play Coastal Carolina, San Diego State, and North Carolina Central. Those are their non-conference games. You look at the toughest games they play in the conference. They'll play Utah. They'll play USC. Where's Oregon? Where's Washington? How did this happen? How does a team avoid 2 of those top 4 teams? They did it. They avoided both of those teams. A really favorable schedule here for UCLA. They do play Oregon State on the road, but again, just Utah and USC out of that top tier. No Oregon, no Washington. you might would have thought that with UCLA leaving the conference, they would have penalized them and gave them a tough schedule, but it's really the opposite. This is the easiest schedule in the Pac-12 by far, and UCLA comes in at number 6. Number 5 is Louisville. Louisville played Georgia Tech there to open up the season in Atlanta. But you look at their non-conference schedule, Murray State, Indiana. They do play Notre Dame, so give them some credit there, and they do play Kentucky. Those non-conference games really are the only thing keeping them from being higher on this list, because you look at their conference schedule. Look at their conference schedule. I mean, this is unbelievable. Georgia Tech, Boston College, NC State, Pittsburgh, Duke, Virginia Tech, Virginia, Miami. No Clemson, no North Carolina, no Florida State. So maybe the 3 top teams in the ACC. You know, they do have Duke, they do have Pittsburgh, they do have NC State. So those are going to be, quality games. Miami as well, but overall, they avoid any of those top teams, both of the top 2 teams in the ACC, and Florida State and Clemson. And again, having Notre Dame in the non-conference, having Kentucky, that's the only thing keeping Louisville from maybe having the easiest schedule in the country. I still don't think they would beat our number 1 team, though. We'll show you them in a second. So number 4 is Syracuse, back in the ACC. They will play Colgate, Western Michigan, Purdue, and Army in the non-conference. So at least they do play Purdue there. And they do play Clemson and Florida State in the ACC, but they avoid North Carolina. They avoid Duke. Overall, a pretty easy schedule the rest of the way. And again, a fairly easy non-conference schedule. It was really close with Syracuse and Louisville. The non-conference schedule for Louisville is why they were at 5 and why Syracuse was at number 4, because Syracuse does have a tougher conference schedule, but that's the way it broke. Syracuse, number 4. Number 3 is Georgia, the Georgia Bulldogs. How about this? Michigan and Georgia, 2 teams that a lot of people have as number 1 and number 2 in their preseason rankings. And both of them have 2 of the top 10 easiest schedules this year. So a very, very easy path for both teams to make it to the college football playoff. You look at Georgia, the non-conference schedule, UT Martin, Ball State, UAB, and Georgia Tech. I mean, that's a laughable non-conference schedule. I think it was Oklahoma that they were supposed to play, but they wound up having to drop that game because of Oklahoma coming to the SEC. So not necessarily their fault. I don't know where they would have wound up. They probably would not have been in the top 10 if you had Oklahoma on the schedule. I can't say for sure. But you look at the conference schedule for them. Tennessee's going to be their only Tier 1 game, their only really tough game. They play Ole Miss and Auburn. They don't play LSU or Alabama out of the SEC West. This is just a really easy schedule. And again, Tennessee might be the only team that challenges Georgia this year. That game is on the road, so that'll be a tough one. But the Bulldogs here at number 3. Number 2 is Oklahoma State. We were talking about the Big 12, and I was talking about Cincinnati. I forgot about Oklahoma State here. They also have a really, really easy conference schedule here. Maybe a little bit of a tougher conference schedule, but an easier non-conference schedule. And that's why, you look at Central Arkansas and South Alabama, Arizona State, who figures to be, pretty bad this year. They're in rebuild mode. But you look at their conference schedule, Iowa State, Kansas, West Virginia, Cincinnati, Oklahoma, UCF, Houston, and BYU. They don't play TCU. They don't play Texas. They don't play Texas Tech. This is just a really good conference schedule for them. So you've got an easy conference schedule, you've got an easy non-conference schedule, and all that adds up for Oklahoma State to have the 2nd easiest schedule in the country, but not number 1. And again, I have a point system that I use here, and I understand how you can make arguments to my list because it's razor thin a lot of times. It's really close, and if you view one thing more than someone else, you look at how many of the top teams is a team playing, or maybe you're just looking at the cupcake games. You're trying to figure out your rankings. But anyways, it's always really close, and that's why I say there's plenty of room for argument. But our number 1 team, it wasn't even close at all. They were like 4 points, and usually, again, it's like percentage points separating these teams. There were like 4 points separating 1 and 2. This team clearly, and I don't think anyone can make an argument here, this team clearly has the easiest schedule. And I say in college football, but we're only looking at the Power 5 teams here. But the easiest schedule in the Power 5 this year is Boston College. Take a look at this schedule. Non-conference, Northern Illinois, Holy Cross, Army and UConn. I know UConn was a little better last year, but still, this is a really easy non-conference schedule. You get 4 of these games, 4 non-conference games, all of them easy. All of them are, I mean, I wouldn't call Army and UConn cupcake games, but they are games that shouldn't be. I mean, those are not great teams. Let's just put it that way. Then you look at who they play in the conference. They do have Florida State. So that saves this from being just a ridiculously easy schedule. They do play Florida State, but they don't play Clemson. They don't play North Carolina. They don't play Duke. You know, this is a really, really favorable schedule in the conference to go along with a really easy non-conference schedule. Boston College, I don't expect them to be very good this year, and maybe they only win a few games, but this schedule gives them a chance. This schedule gives them a chance. You're talking about those 4 non-conference games. You've got Georgia Tech on the schedule. You've got Virginia on the schedule. Virginia Tech on the schedule. I mean, there are winnable games here for Boston College, even maybe Louisville, maybe even Syracuse. A lot of winnable games here if this team turns out to be at least halfway decent. It's just an easy schedule. And again, Boston College clearly has the easiest schedule in the Power 5 in 2023.